would like to thank each and everyone for sparing their time and to be present for this webinar. I am Prajakta. I'm the editor of Logistics and SCM magazine, a part of the ITP Media Group. Just a brief about the ITP Media. We are a Dubai-based media house with over 75 brands. And in India, that's ITP Media India, has 8 magazines, and Logistics is one of them. Logistics is the latest entrant in this ITP Media family, and we will be completing almost 2 years in this May. Just a brief about the magazine Logistics and SCM. It is the digital destination and source of news and information for the supply chain and logistics professionals. It is not only catering to the Indian market, but also global market. And we provide comprehensive coverage of the latest trends, developments, and challenges faced by the sector. Basically, our mission is to inform, educate, and connect logistics and SCM supply chain professionals across the world. Now, coming to today's webinar, the topic of discussion is cold chain storage, mastering the art of perishable goods logistics. Just a brief about the topic. With the increasing consumption of perishables and pharmaceuticals, safeguarding the quality and integrity of the products becomes paramount. In this scenario, cold chain storage emerges as a game changer, as maintaining optimal temperature and humidity throughout the supply chain ensures minimizing spoilage and guaranteeing product freshness. So to discuss more on this topic, we have with us a power-packed panel of industry stalwarts who will delve into the nitty-gritties of the cold chain storage, the challenges the industry is facing, and suggest solutions to overcome them. So let me first introduce our panelists. We have with us Dr. Sanjay Goel. He is the Chief Procurement and Supply Chain Officer at Foodlink Mumbai. Dr. Goel brings 25 years of experience in the sourcing and supply chain industry, having worked across hospitality, restaurants, and FMCG sectors. Welcome, sir. Next, we have with us Ashu Gupta. She is the Vice President Supply Chain at Coe Pharmaceuticals. Ashu is a dynamic and result-driven supply chain professional with over 34 years of diversified qualitative and demonstrative specialized experience in managing pan-India supply chain across leading MNCs and Indian firms. Welcome, Ashu. Then we have Debjani Nandi. She is the Chief Supply Chain Officer at Siddhi Enterprises. Debjani brings with her over 25 years of experience in corporate sales, client acquisition, business development, talent management, revenue growth for improving profitability and operational efficiency. Welcome, Debjani. And last but not the least, we have Nirav Thakkar. He is the Honorary Secretary, Brihan Mumbai Custom Brokers Association, and he is also the Director of 24/7 Logistics. He has over 15 years of demonstrated experience in the logistics and SCM industry. His expertise lies in handling specialized service of moving personal effects, motor vehicles, arts, pets, exhibition cargo, and other valuables. Welcome, Nirav. And again, thank you everyone for joining us. Now we will start a session. Just to begin with, I would like to understand how, starting from Ashu, how is the pharma industry, looking right now? Because we are expecting the industry to grow by almost around reach to $130 billion by 2030. How are you seeing the growth, and what is it that is driving this growth?
As far as pharma industry is concerned, we've seen a tremendous change in the last 35 years. I've been in pharma, I think, from 1988. And as far as cold chain is concerned, so those were the years where no one really understood the implications of the logistics of cold chain. And cold chain logistics simply meant, having a fridge at the warehouse. That's it. And slowly, this having a fridge moved on to having a cold room. And now you have cold rooms for chillers, for the gel packs. So slowly, the warehousing has changed. Coming to the logistics earlier, it meant just calling somebody who was having an air movement courier, giving the goods, moving it by air, and it was reaching. Now, no one ever was tracking the time taken, whether it is 24 hours, whether it is 48 hours, whether the goods, whether they can sustain the kind of temperatures that are seen on the way. So simply packing the goods in thermocol boxes with gel packs, but their outages en route. So nobody was really tracking the temperatures en route. Nobody was measuring anything, whether it took 3 days instead of 2 days, or sometimes the flights got cancelled. So there's a break. You would the flight would not take your packages, two are taken, one is left out, or it is lying at the airport. So all this has been seen, and nobody ever really understood that it is important for the product's integrity and the product's efficacy to be maintained. It is important to track the entire cold chain logistics. And slowly, of course, now specifically during COVID, the vaccine movement led to a lot of growth in the cold chain logistics and pharma industry. And now we are seeing that there are companies who have entered the field. Specifically, we have Indospace and Coolix. They've come together and set up warehouses, I think with 36,000 pallet positions in 3 or 4 big cities. So whereby companies can use these facilities to store their goods properly in cold chain. Because as of now, there's a big lack of infrastructure, first in terms of warehousing. Because everyone who is uh, having cold chain products cannot afford to have a warehouse which matches the requirements of 2 to 8 or maybe a minus 20 degree. So that is on the warehousing. And then on the movement part. So on the movement part, you have got companies who be specialized reefers. The reefers are possible with different temperature conditions. They can be moderated to use 2 to 8 or lower than that, or even ambient conditions. And of course, you have the air couriers. But the challenges faced with air couriers are, as we saw, are the outages en route. So things are changing. So pharma industry, because of the, I think, COVID and the vaccine movement that happened during the COVID phase, I think led to tremendous growth.
Thanks. Similar to the pharma industry, we have the foods and beverages industry. Devjani, if you could, chip into the challenges that Ashu has mentioned. How have you seen, the change, the shift?
Yeah, as far as food and beverages industry, food and pharma already, Ashu ma'am has already told us about what are the scenario changes that has happened. Similarly, in the cold storage space, what I can tell you is that just a decade back, India was having almost single commodity warehouses. So mostly like potatoes and all, which was holding like 90% of the cold storages that we are having. But in the last 1 decade, we have seen a multi-commodity products storages has come up. And all across India, we are seeing that. But still, there is a lot of scope, because if you look into the perishable industry and all, and even today, the demographics that have changed, people are looking towards fruits and vegetables. People are looking towards more like meats, poultry, and more nourishments. So the need of the hour is to have multi-commodity product warehouses. Now, if we are looking at that, the one of the challenges that we are seeing in the cold storage space as a service provider is that compatibility of the products. Like if you are looking in the food space, there is a product which requires a frozen temperature. So even within that frozen temperature, we have like meat and poultry on the one side, which is a non-veg product. We have a veg products also. We have a dairy. So those two cannot be kept together. Only in the frozen space, I'm talking about like minus 18 to minus 23 degrees. So the dairy or the ice cream you have to keep separately. The veg and non-veg you have to keep separately. Again, on the agri and the dairy, they cannot go together because there is again a compatibility factor and all. Similarly, if we come towards there is a chilled section also, like the cheese or butter or curd and all, they have to be kept at a temperature range of 0 to 4. Some of the agri products have to be kept in the 0 to 4, like the fruits and all. We have a CA product also, which is like the fruits, the apples and all. They needs to be kept in a controlled atmosphere with a different set of nitrogen and carbon dioxide and all. So that is another one. Then we have another segment, which is the cool segment, the chocolates and others. They have to be kept in a plus 18 degree to plus 20 degree temperatures. And there also we have to see that the humidity should not be less than like 75% or so. So all this should be less than 75%. So all these changes. So if even in a multi-commodity warehouse in the cold storage, you have to keep all these products separately.
Yeah.
So if you have like a multi-commodity like cold storage, the chambers that has to be kept for each and every product, then you have to keep that. And then the capacity utilization also you have to see. So if a customer comes to us with a like 100 tons of material, and we have a chamber which is 1000 metric ton or a 500 metric ton running at -18, even if we keep that, we have to think about what is the energy consumptions that we are having. So this becomes a very challenge to actually fulfill the capacity and the requirement of the industry also, as well as for as far as we as the service provider. Second thing, there is a huge seasonality factor also. We see like in a -18-degree temperature and all the ice creams are there. So they have a huge seasonality factor during the summer seasons and all. There's a huge pickup that happens. So during that time, there is the cold storage and everybody they are creating that capacity and all. But at the same time, post summer season is gone, then the capacity utilization again becomes a challenge for them, because then ice creams and other products are not there. And again, with the compatibility, we cannot keep like 50% of ice cream and 50% a non-veg or a green peas and all. We cannot keep that. So all this again creates a challenge as far as the cold storage industry is concerned. Then as far as like there is a challenge about the traceability factor also. So if in the traditional cold storages and all, we see that when the technologies are not there is a huge number of SKUs, batch codes and all that needs to be maintained. So physically, if you are maintaining that and in registers and all, there is a traceability factor that comes, whether the expiries are being met or not. And in today's scenario, a lot of changes have happened. Like, for example, a modern trade, they might be looking at a product which has a longer expiry date, while a general trade or a retail, they might be having a product which is like which are having shelf life of less than a month or so. So your like as a service provider, the companies might be telling us, giving us instructions that okay, you have to send that, you have to maintain a FIFO, and at times they have to say that okay, for a modern trade you need to give a longer duration, so you have to find a batch code which is matching their requirements and all. So these factors, if you don't have a technology in place, all these doing manually is like not at all possible. So if you are looking at a tier 1 or a tier 2 cities or a metro cities, this is even possible because there are like established players with good technology and all. But if you are going towards remote areas and all, you will not get this kind of requirements, cannot be made by the cold chain service providers and all. So these are things which are like from the industry's perspective or from the service provider's perspective, these are the pain points that one has to look at. And really like technology and all has helped us a lot. Maybe we can say more on that.
Dr. Goel has joined us.
Sure.
Yeah, Dr. Goel, I would like to understand from you. Already, Devjani has listed out a number of challenges that the food and beverage industry is, giving nightmares to them. What is your take on the industry? How are you seeing that growing? And since you have a lot of experience in this segment, what are the challenges that you all have been facing and you all have been, communicating it with the solutions providers?
You see, the first challenge what I see is the entire cold chain supply chain is very fragmented. So, the last couple of years we have seen some kind of integration, some kind of integrated supply chain and cold chain. So, but it is now evolving. So, it was very fragmented and unorganized. Now, bigger companies and organized corporate houses are coming into it, and it is becoming much more integrated and much more organized sector. So that is happening, and that is a very positive sign. So we have moved ahead from the earlier stage when it was really in a bad shape. So we are in a comfortable situation today. Now, in terms of the challenges, so I don't think today we have a challenges of capacity or availability. That is kind of sorted. but what is important is the how to keep the product integrity. There is no temperature abuse during the entire end-to-end cold chain. How do we ensure traceability and not only traceability of the product but also the integrity of the product? So there is no deviation during end-to-end cold chain. So that also, I think, with the technology and AI coming in, a lot of these challenges are being sorted out. So as we do this webinar today, we are in a positive phase, and in a phase where we are kind of in a taking off position. So we have left the past behind when it was unorganized. There was no technology available. There it was in a very fragmented way. So I am very positive the way the industry is evolving, the way we see the bigger companies, international companies stepping in. And most important thing is, if you look at the Gati Shakti program of Government of India, so the government has, if you hear the speeches of Prime Minister in last couple of years, he's the one person who's been talking about integrated supply chain or cold chain. So you are seeing a lot of logistic cold chain parks are coming. You are seeing that, wherever the food processing industry is there, so around that area there are cold chain facilities there. There are around, there's no dearth of infra today as we speak and as we move forward ahead. Yes, pharma and food and beverage industry are the main user and are the beneficiary of this market situation today. I am very positive the way the things are evolving, and it's going to go get better only.
Dr. Nirav, I would like to come to you on this. While we are talking about, there is a lot of capacity, but as Debjani mentioned, capacity is also a challenge because when it comes to cold storage and especially when it comes to pharma or the food industry, so the demand supply is quite, it's not stable as such. So in those scenarios, how do you, deal with this capacity of plenty? A problem of plenty capacity.
Thank you, Prajakta. And I think good information has already been shared by all the panelists here present, co-panelists. Well, frankly, yes, India being the largest producer of dairy, second largest producer of vegetables, food products, and also we are, sizable in terms of seafood, poultry, meat, chicken products. So with all that, I think in terms of perishables and pharmaceuticals, my biggest thing, the hurdle that we look at in terms of when we see that increase in capacity, the biggest point is first is the infrastructure constraints. So this has actually caused difficulties when we have to have the turnaround time in terms of especially when I'm talking from the point of view in terms of custom clearance of import and export goods. There is a major need of requirement in terms of upscaling the infrastructure at the airports and the seaports, especially for handling the perishable goods.
Correct.
So, I mean, controlled loading bays, temperature excursion. I mean, this can prevent some kind of temperature excursions in terms of handling. Another aspect which I also understand is where when we are looking at this large kind of volumes, government is also trying to ensure that the regulations are in place. Now, when regulations are identified, then the processes are put in place, and with so many things coming in place, the custom clearance involvement, the approvals and NOCs from and permits from drug controllers, certain products which require testing as well. All this becomes quite a complex and time-consuming aspect. So here comes the role play where an identified specialized custom broker can facilitate this proper compliance in the whole aspect. When we are looking at increased capacity, we are also looking at we actually tend to miss out on certain aspects of quality control, which I want to really highlight here. That maintaining this quality aspect and control is very important. There have been many cases that we have identified where consignments have been dispatched from India and they've been rejected. Many consignments which have come into India and because of lack of some proper facilities, they couldn't maintain their same quality level. So here, investing in advanced packaging technologies is very important. The whole administration also of the cold chain has to be done through highly qualified individuals. They should be very well familiar with the whole processes. So guiding them and having a practical expertise is also of utmost importance. Dr. Sanjay already has appropriately mentioned, that this is a highly unorganized sector. We see that, the private sector is actually owning up to almost 92% of the India's cold storage facilities. And if you look at, 60% of the nation's cold storage is only in 4 states, which is of UP, Gujarat, West Bengal, and Punjab. So, looking at this business, which is highly fragmented, and they have non-existence in several regions, I think it becomes very difficult when it comes to movement of perishable goods. And Ms. Devjani also highlighted about fluctuations in terms of season, the demand and supply. So here, weather-related delays, etc., could really cause difficulty. I think what comes to my mind that one of the most important aspect is about cost management. Because when we are importing perishables into the country and with huge volumes, this is really a cost-intensive activity. And along with that, we see that it's not only the normal logistics, but this is specialized logistics, which involves specialized transportation, specialized storage, packaging, everything. Now, in India, if we look at almost 50% of the operation cost is purely fuel expenditures. Now, this is actually less in other countries, but in India, it's so high. So, the powered cooling systems, if they malfunction because of power outages, because of fluctuations, then all these are, causing a real issue in the whole avoiding the breaking in the chain of the whole aspect. Major problem is this causes significant waste. And this is reasons could be exposed to heat, or they have been extended length of time lost due to, and that actually affects the quality and the competitiveness. So I think looking at this majorly, waste management and curtailing wastage was probably the best cost management solution. If you are looking at an overall picture, this makes something I think according to me the most important aspect in the whole aspect of cold storage.
But then, Devjani, as a solution provider and Nirav for you also, so the responsibility as such lies on you all both. Ensuring that such wastage is less, because manufacturers from their side, they will be manufacturing it and sending across. They depend on you all. So how is it that you all as solution providers would actually help them in managing this?
I would, Devjani, you want to answer this first?
Yeah, what I can say, Prajakta, is service provider definitely want to give a complete solution to their customers and all. But in India, as Sanjay ji said, and Dr. Nirav also said, that there is a fragmented cold chain, like it's not completely integrated and all. Secondly, like if we are looking into it, even in the unorganized sector also, the multi-commodity state-of-the-art kind of a infrastructure is also not available that much, which is required. The demand for that is there, but only in some places you will be seeing that. Even in a city, like in a metro cities, the space constraints are there. So we are seeing traditional cold storages rather than state-of-the-art cold storages and all. A city like a Delhi or a Bombay, inside that you won't be seeing like completely automated kind of a cold storage. You will be seeing a traditional cold storages only, and many of them are being handled by single owners and all, and the laborers and the people who are there inside handling, they are also not very trained and all. So technology again plays a very important role in this. Now, if we look at like FSSI, they have come up with this fast track training and things like that. So, but we have a dearth of manpower as well, a trained manpower who actually know how to handle the perishable goods at every point in time. So things are changing in India, but it's still, there's a lot that is expected out of it. There are certain specialized companies and all who are providing this. But if we look at the small volume, like customers and all, they are really find it difficult also. And so nowadays we are seeing a lot of aggregators coming in who are actually aggregating all these small like customers and all, maybe the restaurants and the other players who cannot get that kind of a, because of economies of scale and all, the bigger players won't be able to give them that kind of a service, and the smaller player, they might face a challenge in there. So these aggregators and all, they are helping them out. So we are seeing a lot of changes that is happening within the cold storage industry as well, like entire cold chain industry, and which is always good for coming for the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dr.
Ashu,
Neerav.
Ashu, I would like to understand from you also, what is your take now that we have heard, Devjani also speak on it, Dr. Neerav also speak on it. How has your experience been?
I would just like to share one of my experiences, which is somewhere around 2011. And just to share, the challenge that is faced in pharma of having a infrastructure of cold chain storage. So what happened was that while I was working at Wockhardt, and there were some vaccines which we used to be selling, that particular vendor was to be shut down for a few months. So we had to import double the quantity of vaccines in advance. Now, while this angle was clear that, okay, fine, we'll import that vaccine, where do we store it? Because the warehouse that was available with us was of a particular capacity. It was limited. It was limited to handle maybe a couple of months inventory. Now, this was going to be something like 6 months inventory. So I went searching, in and around Mumbai for cold chain storage facilities. I visited some areas, and I was really shocked when I saw the kind of facilities that were being touted as the cold chain storage. Most of them were for perishable goods, which means vegetables and fruits and vegetable. But in terms of hygiene, very, very poor. There was not a single facility which was of pharma grade. So when I say pharmaceutical storage, then it has to meet a particular set of guidelines. And in terms of hygiene, it has to be clean. So the FNV, the food and vegetables, the perishable cold chain were very poorly maintained and very dirty. And you would definitely not be able to store vaccines in such a storage facility. I visited numerous facilities and was very disappointed. Now, what do we do? This was critical and had to be done. So, after racking my brains, finally, I spoke to one of our service providers who used to provide us reefer vehicles for cold chain movement pan India. So, I said, I have an idea. If, if you can park one of your reefer containers outside my warehouse, I will connect that reefer container to my facility inside so that it runs on diesel and power, whatever. So finally, I got a reefer container. I parked it outside my warehouse. It was running on diesel and facility, whatever. And I could store the vaccines for over 6 months in that reefer container outside my warehouse at practically much, much lower cost and in the kind of environment which was compliant with the pharma guidelines. Of course, this was 14 years back. Today, things have changed. Infrastructure has developed. Yet, for the smaller players who would, if you would need something in emergency or for a smaller period, yes, still it is not available. And definitely, pharmaceutical industry has this challenge yet to be met. So apart from the challenge of having breakdowns of the vehicles because of poor infra in the country, because en route if any vehicle breaks down, so till the time there's a replacement vehicle, will that vehicle be able to sustain with the diesel available to maintain the temperature of whatever the desired temperature? In terms of complying with the regulatory compliance and the statutory regulations in terms of FSSAI or the FDA, then meeting all of these, then of course the temperature excursions, when even if you send the goods by air, the problem is that while you would pack the goods, there are temperature excursions because the entire route is not in a 228 degree or what are the temperature that you need from your warehouse to the airport. Today, yes, things are changing, but at one time there would not be a vehicle available which is maintaining the same temperature at the airport, from the airport warehouse to the flight, from the flight when it lands to the warehouse. At every stage, you need the airport facility to continue maintaining that temperature. So there are no temperature excursions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it comes back to the point that Dr. Nirav had also mentioned infrastructure, and where he mentioned that we have these storages in very few locations. How would you react to the experience that Ashu has shared?
I totally endorse to what point she mentioned, and the way she said that in order to, I mean, this is like how we get the work done in India most of the time, where we find a way out, and this is how she said that we could park the container and put it to for temperature. I think this actually, this is where we need to really bring about a change in terms of bridging that whole integrated chain. I think Dr. Sanjay really properly mentioned about this, having an integrated chain, because when we are looking at India, that we are India is actually being anticipating to be the top five economies in the world by 2027. Okay, now we are already a leader in the global marketplace, where we our presence is already there. So our annual investment in this infrastructure development has to actually rise. If you look at the frozen food market, in my opinion, where I just read about that, there's a compounded annual growth rate of almost around 5.3%. And which means if this kind of an increment is there, there has to be, cold chain facilities in support. Now, this actually not only puts pressure on the cold chain itself, but this will require other industries, like real estate for warehousing, like automobiles, because we have to develop, specialized vehicles, steel industry, we will need lumber. All of these, their supply chains also have to be developed, in this case.
So
Mm,
we are basically talking about the infrastructure not being in place. So I mean, Dr. Goel, you also mentioned about this. So is that a kind of a major challenge that we are seeing, because that's something that has been come up by all the panelists.
Yeah, you see, as I said, it used to be very bad, but the way there has been thought process from the government, the way things are happening in the government side on a fast pace and scale at which our prime minister always believes in scale and speed. So things are evolving, things are changing very fast. These integrated parks, the cold chain parks or logistics parks are becoming reality. Yes, what we were 10 years before, in the past, we were in a very bad shape. Today, as Nirav said, we are one of the prime exporters in perishables category, in dairy, in seafood, pharma. We are one of the top players in the world. So we are dealing in this space not without having any infrastructure. So we have a decent infrastructure. That's why we are being one of the top players in this space. But yes, as I said, it is not organized. It is fragmented. So that is evolving. That has to happen. A lot of investment has to come. But one good thing is that there has been will and wish from the government side to that we have to work on this, and this is one of the prime area and focus area.
I just wanted to add one more
Yeah,
thing, with your permission. So,
yeah, yeah, sure.
what Dr. Sanjay did mention appropriately, that yes, there are facilities, there is infrastructure development. Where I was trying to also say is that with the increasing quantum and progress that the country is making, that's where an additional input is required. But also I was looking at one of the reports where they said that there are 8,653 coal stores in the country, and that in totality they have a capacity of almost 395 lakh metric tons, but only 60% of this facility is being utilized. So
Yeah.
I think along with that, it's also important that on development there has to be proper utilization of these kind of storages. Thank you.
Just wanted to understand on this aspect. Now that we are seeing a lot of disruptions that are happening, probably the geopolitical issues or the recent attacks that we have seen, uh, is that somehow going to impact this entire storage network, or how important is the storage right now? We are seeing playing a major role in such scenario when the demand would be the disruptions would be massive. Getting inventory is we'll have to have more inventories saved. How are you all seeing the current scenario and storage playing a major role?
See, as Nirav said, that creating an infra is fantastic to want to have a massive infra, but he spoke about utilization. At the end of the day, it has to be commercially viable, and it has to be a remunerative sector for people to invest and create interest, right? So, to make it win-win, while we create in capacity, while we try and bring balance between demand and supply, it has to go hand in hand with the business. It is in fact will be detrimental to have capacities and then not being utilized. That will be having a negative effect on the development of the entire sector. So I think we are in the nice space, and things are evolving fast, and things are changing to get better and better. And each sector is in itself: pharma, dairy, seafood, perishables in terms of vegetables and fruits. Each sector we are doing pretty well as a country, whether we talk about exports and domestic consumption. So I think we are fairly well placed. I am always a very positive guy, so I always look at the things in a very positive way. And yes, as Madam said, she could find a solution by creating a space by putting a container. So the in Indian kind of situation, these jugaad kind of solution, they also work when there are critical situations and circumstances. But as we said, the jugaad is jugaad, and once in a while it can work. But as an organized sector, I think things are evolving. There's been tremendous improvement in the, I see a lot of startups coming up. There's a company called Just Deliveries. That they are primarily into tech-based cold chains. So everything is traceable right from the moment of the vehicle, where it is parked, temperature is being, is monitored, everything. So there's a lot happening around cold chain, and there's a lot of positive movements. A lot of startups are coming up in this space, and a lot of big corporate houses are coming up into creating the infrastructure. So let's be very positive, and I see going to be a good momentum in next 4 5 years.
Absolutely. I
Hi,
think so.
Prajakta. I would like to add a few points to
Yes.
what Dr. Goel has said.
Yes.
Rightly said, as I had pointed earlier, also a lot of aggregators are there. They are doing a huge work for us as well, because they are aggregating the things and giving it to us, to the service provider. But there are certain infrastructural bottlenecks that we are also seeing today. For example, as a cold storage creator, we are seeing like any refrigeration units and all that has to be imported. If we talk about like whether a Bitzer or a Freshcold, they are like foreign companies who are having the technologies and all, and we have to import all of those. But we are not having that in-house capacity in India. Like if we get indigenous products and all, the spare parts and things like that, it will be easier for us to get that. Maybe the way like we are asking Tesla to have their own setup in India, the government can see that these kind of refrigeration companies and all, they can have their technology and all. We have seen Kirloskar compressors and all, but they doesn't have that energy efficiency in them. So we have to import, and again, having spare parts and all, there is a lot of cost that goes into it. So on the infrastructure side, we need a lot of support.
Sure.
That if we can get those, definitely this industry can help a lot on the energy efficiency part and all. And as like ma'am also said, and Dr. Thakkar also mentioned, that temperature integrity and all those can be checked off with the API integration between the different service providers, and we can have a complete like cold chain solution from the farm up to the fork.
Right.
So within that, we can have a complete visibility and traceability of both the temperature and the products. Because if tomorrow anybody wants to recall a product, they need to see across the value chain, across the cold chain, where it is lying, whether it's lying in the transportation, or it is lying in the warehouse, or it is lying at the retail shop. So all these can be integrated through like IoT devices, through data loggers and all, and through API integration, so that the complete transparency and visibility is there.
Absolutely. So technology is basically going to play a major role in this.
Yeah.
Automation and data.
If I may add to what Ms. Devjani just said, so absolutely with the kind of the innovation happening in India, it's good, but then we still need to come up to that level in terms of the requirement of machinery and the refrigerated units. And just to give a brief understanding about, like, cold chain is a specialized industry. Like, in terms of custom broking, we have custom brokers who are handling, project cargo, where they are handling liquid, bulk, and commodities, perishables, pharma, chemicals, all these. So they are specialized, and and expertise in these custom regulations, preparation of documentation. All this becomes very important when it comes to importing the right product. Many of these products which are coming into India have to be as per the Bureau of Indian Standards. There are electronic waste regulations which are also, applicable to them. When all these things coming in, import itself also becomes challenge. Right now, I'm not even talking on the perishables point of view, but also the units which Devjani mentioned about, which are being imported. So, in Mumbai, there are around 2,300 custom brokers. Now, all do not have specializing in these kind of products. But then identifying the ones who specialize, who can help in proper classification, proper duty applicable, and the kind of the regulations and implementation of allied acts. This helps in complete compliance and risk management. And yes, of course, in terms of technology, I think this is the time where the use is very much required. Dr. Sanya mentioned about visibility being there, breakage of Ashu mentioned, and Devjani also mentioned that the whole cold chain is getting broken when there are no continuous supply required. So here, I think a lot of cloud-based platforms, a lot of data analysis, business intelligence, and all these units, Temptails, data loggers, probes, all these are new technologies which can help to ensure, and the kind of human intervention reduces, because that's where, if there's a small mistake that happens, it can become wrong. Here the systems will flag off and give alerts.
Talking about the flag offs, we also have the issue of carbon emissions, especially when it comes to cold storage and transportation. Ashu, would you like to share your experiences, or
Issue of carbon emissions today is very important, since specifically cold chain movement storage depends on active temperature control systems. Now, all these use power, so their emissions, carbon dioxide, diesel, again emissions, gases. So how do we reduce this? So one way is that shifting to passive temperature control systems, use of alternative materials like maybe aluminium to create insulation layers. So, for example, I'll give an experience of mine. in one of the previous organizations, we had set up a central warehouse at Nagpur for the for all our pharmaceutical goods. Now, after a while, we added some products which needed cold chain storage, which meant it would do 8 degrees. Now, Nagpur, if you know, as a location, has temperatures ranging up to 48-50 degrees in the summers, and definitely not the right location for a cold chain storage. But it was not workable and practical for me to have two warehouses, one at Nagpur for the ambient goods and one at some other city for a cold chain. So we sat together, we had brainstorming sessions, and then finally, our warehouse 3PL provider, he came up with the solution. So what we did was we created a warehouse where all the walls we used the insulation of with silver insulation sheets. So all the walls of the warehouse were covered with silver insulation sheets, which reduced the heat in the warehouse, which was first of its kind in at that point of time in Nagpur. And nobody had ever imagined that, that I would be able to run a pharmaceutical cold chain storage facility at Nagpur. So use of alternate materials is one of the ways that we can reduce the carbon footprint. And of course, there's a long way to go in actually making a dent in reducing the carbon emissions.
Absolutely. Devjani, would you also like to add to it since you are one of the solutions providers?
Yeah. Carbon emissions net zero goal is nowadays every cold chain service provider, the big ones, basically, they are looking at, like even at Siddhi Enterprises also. We have our Delhi facility, which is almost 80% is running on the solar power. So we have a big 1.2 megawatt capacity, and which is catering to our entire cold storage in Delhi, inside Delhi, powered by that. So 80% of our energy bills comes from that. So solar power is something which is going to help us. Then if we look at rather than the earlier like ammonia plant and all, we are using Freon these days, like CFC free Freon 404A. So all these then water cooling rather than the air cooling, because here in Delhi, you see the temperature goes above like 48, 49 degrees, wherein the air cooling temperature like refrigerations and all is not that suitable during the summer, peak summers and all. So we are using air cooling. So water cooling. So all these are helping us, and we are having rainwater harvesting also, so that our water requirements also is minimized. So these are the things which can make a sustainable like cold chain, which can, as a service provider, we wanted to have our net zero goals. Similar to that, all the big players are doing that. They are looking at, because energy is one thing which is like the like OPEX. If you're looking at the OPEX, like 80% of that is basically being coming from the energy part, because all the temperature and everything. So that if we are completely reliant on the grids only, the cost also increases. So if we can bring down the cost, looking at alternative sources of energy, that will really help us out.
Absolutely.
And here, if government also can help us in giving uninterrupted power supply, and they can increase also, like in Haryana and all, only 500 megawatt you can use. Like if we want more, that kind of an like there should be some incentivizing by the government, so that like all the cold chain companies, they can look for bigger solutions and all, and help bring down the cost as well.
So,
these are some of the things we are looking at as far as cold chain is concerned. Yeah.
So as such, this is, I mean, you have sort of summarized it, what exactly needs to be done. So I would like to understand from the other panelists also, what is it exactly that you all are looking at, from not just your solutions provider, from especially from the manufacturer's side, not only from the solutions providers, but also from the government. What kind of assistance is required so that you have a seamless and a resilient supply chain? So, Dr. Goyal and Ashu, if you could.
Yes, from the government side, it's basically, is the policy support, which is the government has to have a progressive policy understanding. If you want to be the third most, powerful economy in the world, then all these the exports plays an important role. All these sectors, in terms of pharma, perishables, seafood, dairy, whatever we call it, wherever there is a requirement of an integrated cold chain, plays an important role. So the government policy should be encouraging, as Devyani said, that somewhere you have to give incentives. Somewhere their government is giving so many incentives, PLIs, and things like that for various sectors. So I think the cold chain has to come into that priorities list of the government to get those kind of incentives to give all the players, whether it is is warehousing cold chain, whether it's reefer vehicles, the entire piece of cold chain has to be incentivized and kind of creating that kind of environment where all these players can do a business with a positive frame of mind.
See, if you look at the two major challenges, so one is the infra for the cold storage, the lack of efficient modern cold storage facilities. The second is the lack of refrigerated vehicles movement, easily affordable vehicles, and of course the huge investment required in both of these areas. And another big challenge is the lack of regulatory framework. So there is an absence of comprehensive regulatory framework in the industry, which the government has specifically defined the standards for movement as well as for storage. So if you look at all these, we need government initiatives to address each of these challenges. Also, when we look at the carbon footprint, so the thermocol boxes, which is used largely in pharma industry for transportation of these vaccines and other cold chain products, we need eco-friendly alternatives, which will also be less carbon emissions and more of carbon footprints. We need government to do all of this. But at the same time, what I also understand is that government has already addressed uh, a number of areas in cold chain. What I was recently reading is that there is one National Center for Cold Chain Development, which is a government funded organization that promotes the development of cold chain industry in India. It provides technical assistance and support to cold chain stakeholders. Then also there's another something called the cold chain value addition and preservation infrastructure, which is a central government scheme to create a network of cold chain, which also provides financial assistance to eligible projects. There's another scheme for augmentation of cold chain. So this, yes, government is taking its steps to support the participation. Private sector participation is being encouraged. So it's a two-way thing.
So I think government should actually simplify certain procedures when it comes to imports and export of products like perishables and the units which are required for storage and movement. Because as I mentioned earlier, technology is yet to upgrade there. In fact, 2014, when India came up with Make in India, the focus was not that it's just that we start making it. It was, the idea was, you make in India and you export out of India. You provide sufficient requirements to the world which they want. So when, if you are looking at certain goods which are not available in India and we are importing them, I think there should be a simplification of certain procedures there. When it comes to exports, I think government must promote that, because right now, there have been some cases in when the goods arrive at the port. Yes, everything in customs is currently system based. They have been forefront in basically taking forward the technology and adopting it. But sometimes there are systems that gives orders. There are certain goods which cannot be opened and examined. Now, in such cases, if they do it, then it will lose its importance, and because of the temperature control, they cannot be. So, government should have a system based that whenever such things orders are coming, there has to be a quick action taken, and such should be overruled, or an alternate mechanism needs to be in place. So I think the both these imports and export point of view, and I think one another aspect very important is focus on skill development, because this is where I feel when we are handling specialized goods, then there has to be a good amount of knowledge shared across to people that this is how, and that training is very important. In fact, already the Logistics Skill Council has taken good amount of steps there. They've identified 6 to 7 roles with respect to this industry of cold chain, and they are training individuals there. But a widespread marketing is very important and will help it to take it further.
Very well summed up. We have a few questions that have come up. If we have time, if I could, ask one of them is someone has asked us, is reverse logistics or return logistics a challenge also? And is there a transport aggregator for this in cold chain?
I may take this up.
Yes.
It is in the pharma space, yes, there are some organizations who refuse to take back any returns of such products because of the possible and probable temperature excursions, and you cannot ensure the product efficacy on its way back, or do not know whether the product has gone through the temperature excursions. So in pharma, many organizations refuse to do that. At the same time, yes, return logistics is definitely a challenge, because there are occasions where you would need to take back, and in such instances, it's the smaller local couriers who support you. So what normally happens in pharma is that our distributors or stockists, we tell them that, okay, use a courier which will bring back the goods in 24 to 48 hours. You use proper gel packs, you use proper thermocol boxes, you do a packing. But there is no formalized, there are no aggregators available. When we talk of the reefer vehicles, they carry only full loads for a particular organization. There are no small loads reefers that that you can aggregate, say, 10 companies material into a reefer vehicle and ensure that the goods are reaching the principal. So this is a challenge.
So basically, all stakeholders need to come together to address this challenge. Only then that we can build a
This is on the pharma
resilient
side.
supply.
On the perishables, I don't really think that returns are actually possible, frankly.
Yeah, Prajakta, here I would like to mention one thing. If we are talking about returns, when we are giving out some product, it goes outward to the logistics service provider and it goes to the distributors and all. You don't know how long the distributors have kept it in a whether there is a temperature abuse that has actually happened or not. And once it returns back and it doesn't get mixed, if it gets mixed with the other products and all, there is a question of integrity of the products and all. So it becomes very difficult in the perishable or on the cold chain system to get return products and all. So although we have to have there are situations wherein the distributors may not have enough space, the vehicle goes there and then returns with some of the products, there are wrong invoicing and things like that. But it is a very critical thing that needs to be looked at.
Absolutely.
So yes,
probably since you all have summed up in what I could come up with is that all the stakeholders need to be on the same page, and probably then it's only then that we can have a resilient supply chain, both for pharma, for the F&B industry, and also for the other sectors which require cold storage. I would like to thank you everyone for sparing your time, and it was a great session indeed. Looking forward to such sessions in future as well.
Thanks, Prajakta, for inviting us, and it was really a good session. And we had a good discussion on the matters, and I think hopefully this will take the entire cold chain industry forward. Sessions like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and I think we had a great session.